Once, our Earth was entirely different. No humans, no cities, only endless oceans, fiery volcanoes, silent forests. And then came a species that ruled the planet for 165 million years. Tonight, we'll journey back into that forgotten age, into the reign of the dinosaurs. So close your eyes, breathe slowly, and drift with me into a time where giants walked the Earth.
230 million years ago, Earth was a harsh and restless place. Continents were locked together in a single colossal landmass, Pangaea. The summers were long and brutally hot, while the winters brought sudden storms and flooding rains. This was not yet the world of dinosaurs. It was a world of giant amphibians, armored reptiles, and strange crocodile-like hunters. But change was coming. In the shadows, a new kind of creature was preparing to rise, one that would shape the future of life itself. The very first dinosaurs were not the towering giants we imagine today. They were small, fast, and fragile. One of the earliest, Eoraptor, was no bigger than a dog, a quick two-legged hunter with sharp teeth for catching insects and lizards. Close behind came Herrerasaurus, a more fearsome predator, longer, faster, and deadly efficient. They were lean, light, and built for speed. Unlike the heavy reptiles of the time, they stood upright, balancing on strong hind legs. This gave them an advantage, the ability to chase, leap, and strike with agility. Though small, they carried within them the blueprint for what dinosaurs would become. But in the late Triassic, dinosaurs were far from rulers. They were survivors, clinging to life at the edge of ecosystems dominated by giants. The apex predators of this age were not dinosaurs at all. Massive reptiles called Rauisuchians, distant relatives of crocodiles, ruled the land. With skulls longer than a man and legs like pillars, they hunted anything smaller than themselves. Early dinosaurs often had to flee, scavenging at the edges, waiting for opportunities when the giants were distracted. They were the underdogs of their time, biding their moment. What gave dinosaurs their edge was not size or strength, but design. Their hips were built differently, with legs positioned directly beneath the body, not sprawling to the sides. This made them faster and more efficient than the rivals. Their tails acted like counterweights, letting them balance as they sprinted. Their lungs may have been more advanced too, delivering oxygen with each breath even as they ran. These small advantages would, over millions of years, tip the scales of survival. Not all early dinosaurs were hunters. Some evolved long necks and heavy bodies, designed not for speed, but for reaching the treetops. The first great plant eaters, like Plateosaurus, appeared in this time. Weighing several tons, they gathered in herds, pulling down tough Triassic vegetation. For predators, they were too big to hunt easily. For themselves, they were too heavy to run. But their survival strategy was numbers. Together, they forged the path for what would become the most famous giants in Earth's history, the sauropods. Life in the late Triassic was a gamble. Droughts could last months, killing entire herds. Then, without warning, the rains would come, rivers swelling into violent floods, sweeping everything away. Dinosaurs were forged in this crucible of extremes. Their adaptability, their ability to move, to migrate, to eat what others could not, gave them the resilience to endure when other creatures perished. 201 million years ago, Earth convulsed. Immense volcanic eruptions split apart the crust of Pangaea. Rivers of fire poured across the land, and the skies filled with ash and poison gas. This was the end Triassic extinction, one of the great die-offs in Earth's history. Half of all species vanished, including the mighty Rauisuchians, the crocodile-like overlords that had ruled the land. But in this destruction, dinosaurs found opportunity. When the smoke cleared, the world belonged to them. The small, quick survivors, dinosaurs, suddenly found themselves without rivals. With their competition gone, they spread across every corner of Pangaea. Predators grew larger, plant eaters multiplied, and a dynasty began that would last for more than 150 million years. From fragile beginnings, they had endured storms, famine, and fire. And now they would rise into an empire, the greatest the Earth has ever seen. The story of the dinosaurs began not with giants, but with survivors. In a world of monsters, they were underestimated, overlooked, yet their endurance, their clever design, and their will to adapt made them stronger than fire and time itself. This was the dawn of the dinosaurs, and it was only the beginning.
The Triassic had ended in fire. The volcanic storms that split Pangaea had wiped away half of all life. But from the ashes of extinction, a new age began, the Jurassic period. Rain returned, forests spread, and the survivors flourished. And among them, dinosaurs seized their destiny. For the first time, they were not just survivors, they were rulers. The most dramatic change came with the plant eaters. In the early Jurassic, dinosaurs like Volcanodon and Ankylosaurus grew larger than anything before. Their necks stretched longer, their bodies heavier, their strides slower, but they had found a winning formula. With necks that could reach both high branches and low ferns, sauropods could graze on food no other animal could touch, and size itself became a weapon. Few predators dared challenge a creature the size of a house. These were the first echoes of the giants to come, the titans that would one day shake the earth with every step. But where there are herds, hunters always follow. In this new world, the role of predator belonged to agile, intelligent killers like Dilophosaurus. Sleek, fast, and armed with twin crests atop their skulls, they hunted in packs, ambushing prey near rivers and floodplains. They were not the largest of predators, but they were among the cleverest, testing strategies, working together, striking when the moment was right. Their kind proved that dinosaurs were not just strong, but adaptable. They were inventing new ways to dominate. As dinosaurs grew, they also began to move in numbers. The early Jurassic saw the rise of true herds, groups of sauropods and early plant eaters moving together for protection. A single dinosaur was vulnerable, but 100 marching as one became nearly unstoppable. The ground shook beneath their feet, their calls echoed across valleys. For the first time, dinosaurs were not just scattered survivors, they were nations on the march. The Earth itself was shifting. Pangaea continued to break apart, opening vast oceans that changed weather forever. Rainfall became steady, jungles expanded, and deserts shrank. This stability created something new, a world where dinosaurs could grow, multiply, and diversify. What began as small enclaves became global empires. For the first time, dinosaurs ruled every corner of the land. Dinosaurs ruled the land, but the seas told another story. Here, reptiles took other forms, the ichthyosaurs, swift as dolphins, and the plesiosaurs with long necks weaving through schools of fish. Though not dinosaurs, these ocean giants rose alongside them, turning Jurassic seas into hunting grounds as dangerous as the plains. It was a reminder, life adapts everywhere, and dinosaurs were only part of a larger, wilder symphony. What set dinosaurs apart was not just their size, but their engineering. Their lungs pulled oxygen efficiently, even as they ran. Their bones were light but strong, reinforced by air sacs. Their legs placed beneath their bodies let them walk for miles without tiring. Other reptiles had once ruled by sheer strength. Dinosaurs ruled by design. They were not just surviving the Jurassic world, they were thriving in it. The balance of power was shifting. Predators like Dilophosaurus tested the herds, circling, charging, striking at the weak. But even the fiercest hunters could be crushed under a single swing of a sauropod's tail. The age of small, fragile dinosaurs was over. This was the dawn of giants, creatures so large they reshaped the rules of survival. In less than 10 million years, dinosaurs had gone from survivors of catastrophe to undisputed masters of the land. They grew larger, moved farther, lived longer. They claimed deserts, forests, rivers, and plains. This was their age, and it was only the beginning. From fragile origins, dinosaurs had risen into giants. They marched across the world in numbers never seen before, their footsteps echoing like drums across the land. The early Jurassic was not yet their peak, but it was their promise, a promise of what they would become, the greatest creatures ever to walk the Earth.
170 million years ago, the Earth was restless. The single landmass of Pangaea was breaking apart. New oceans opened, climates shifted, and landscapes stretched wider than ever. And on these new frontiers, dinosaurs evolved into shapes the world had never seen. The Middle Jurassic was not just survival, it was expansion and the dawn of true giants. From humble beginnings, the sauropods now rose to dominate. Cetiosaurus, among the first truly massive dinosaurs, stretched over 50 feet. Their bodies were living fortresses, their necks reaching food untouched for millions of years. And they were not alone. Patagosaurus of South America, Shunosaurus of China, and others filled every land. Each continent grew its own colossus, shaped by its forests and plains. The Middle Jurassic was the moment sauropods became kings, not of a single valley, but of entire continents. But size alone was not enough. Sauropods thrived because they lived together. Great herds moved across the land, mothers shielding calves, tails whipping to ward off hunters. These were not solitary giants. They were families, communities, living fortresses moving as one. The power of the herd made them unstoppable. It was evolution's answer to danger, safety in size and safety in numbers. But the hunters of the Middle Jurassic were no less ambitious. Megalosaurus, the first dinosaur ever named by science, was among these predators. Stocky, muscular, and armed with bone-crushing jaws, it hunted the smaller plant eaters, stegosaurs, early ornithopods, and the young of sauropods. In North America, Torvosaurus grew to nearly 35 feet, a shadow in the forests. Though they could not bring down the largest adults, these predators carved their niche. They were wolves of the Jurassic, quick, savage, and patient. As predators sharpened their claws, plant eaters sharpened their defenses. The first stegosaurs appeared in this age, like Huangosaurus of China. Small by later standards, but armed with plates and tail spikes, weapons of bone and keratin that turned the meek into the mighty. The stegosaur's tail spike, the thagomizer, could pierce deep into a predator's flesh. It was a warning written in evolution: attack us and pay the price. It was not just animals that grew. The Earth itself changed. Jurassic forests flourished under warm, wet climates. Conifers rose high, creating green cathedrals beneath the sky. Tree ferns and cycads filled the understory, while mosses and horsetails carpeted the riverbanks. For sauropods, this was paradise, an endless buffet stretching across continents. For predators, it was cover, shadows from which to strike. The Middle Jurassic was not an empty plain, it was a living maze, and survival meant knowing how to move within it. While dinosaurs ruled the land, the oceans teemed with giants of their own. Plesiosaurs with long necks hunted fish in shallow seas. Ichthyosaurs, streamlined like dolphins, cut through open waters. Ammonites, coiled shelled relatives of squid, grew to the size of cartwheels. The Middle Jurassic seas were no refuge, they were battlegrounds as fierce as anything on land. The Middle Jurassic also left behind footprints, thousands of them, pressed deep into mud that hardened to stone. From South America to Europe to China, trails stretch for miles, recording the journeys of herds across ancient plains. Every step pressed into the earth was a story of migration, of survival, of the endless march of giants. By the height of the Middle Jurassic, dinosaurs were unmatched. Predators grew strong, but herds stood stronger. Stegosaurs defended themselves with spikes. Sauropods towered into the trees unchallenged in their domain. This was balance, predator and prey locked in eternal struggle, each driving the other to adapt, to evolve, to become something greater. The Middle Jurassic was a world in motion. Giants walked the earth, herds thundered across valleys, predators struck from the shadows, and forests rose to the skies. But even this was only a prelude, for in the late Jurassic, dinosaurs would reach their true golden age,
when creatures like Brachiosaurus, Diplodocus, and Allosaurus would redefine power, size, and majesty. The footprints of the Middle Jurassic were not the end. They were the beginning of the most extraordinary chapter yet.
155 million years ago, the world entered its golden age. Continents split apart, oceans grew wider, and climates shifted into patterns that shaped the future. Warm, humid lands stretched across the globe. Great plains opened, forests flourished, and the stage was set. The late Jurassic was the height of dinosaur glory. Colossal giants, deadly hunters, and armored defenders filled every corner of the earth. This was the age when dinosaurs ruled without rival, and the world belonged to them. The late Jurassic gave rise to the true titans. Brachiosaurus stood as high as a 4-story building, its neck stretching over 40 feet into the canopy. It could strip entire trees bare in moments. Diplodocus stretched over 85 feet from nose to tail, one of the longest animals ever to walk the earth. Its tail, a whip of bone and muscle, could snap faster than sound, deterring even the bravest hunters. Together with Apatosaurus, Brontosaurus, and Camarasaurus, these sauropods turned the land into a kingdom of giants. To see them move was to witness an earthquake. Herds of sauropods stretched for miles, their footfalls shaking the ground. Mothers shielded their young, tails swung like clubs, and rivers parted before their mass. But even the strongest herds faced danger. In the shadows, predators gathered, vast, cunning, and hungry. The late Jurassic was not just a paradise, it was a battlefield, and survival meant strength, unity, and vigilance. Ruling these plains was Allosaurus, not the largest predator, but perhaps the most feared. At 30 feet long, with serrated teeth and clawed hands, it hunted with intelligence and teamwork. Like lions of today, Allosaurus may have attacked in groups, targeting the weak, the sick, or the young. A healthy adult Brachiosaurus was too much, but calves and stragglers stood little chance. The lion of the Jurassic left nothing to waste. Flesh, bone, marrow, all were taken in the endless cycle of survival, but plant eaters were not defenseless. Stegosaurus, with its double row of plates and lethal tail spikes, was a living fortress. Its thagomizer could drive deep into predator flesh, breaking ribs, puncturing organs. In the plains of North America, Stegosaurus stood side by side with sauropods, guardians of the herds. The late Jurassic world was rich with life. Forests of pine-like conifers reached skyward, cycads and ferns spread beneath. Horsetails lined the riverbanks. Each level of the forest had its diners. Sauropods fed high in the trees. Stegosaurus and ornithopods grazed the mid-levels, and small quick feeders darted among the ferns. This was nature's great balance, a layered banquet where every creature had its place. Beyond the land, the seas were no less dangerous. Plesiosaurs stretched their necks through schools of fish. Ichthyosaurs darted like dolphins, and pliosaurs, massive predators with jaws longer than a man, struck with lightning speed. Ammonites, some larger than cartwheels, drifted through the deep. The oceans of the Jurassic were alien worlds, filled with hunters as fearsome as any on land. The giants left more than bones. They left their steps. Trackways in Utah, Portugal, and Morocco reveal herds moving together, predators pacing nearby, young ones struggling to keep up. Every footprint is a frozen story, a record of journeys, of hunts, of lives lived millions of years ago. The late Jurassic was a kingdom of balance. Sauropods ruled with size, Stegosaurus defended with armor, Allosaurus hunted with ferocity. No single creature dominated all. Each had strengths, each had weaknesses, and together they shaped a world of tension, survival, and fragile harmony. The late Jurassic was the height of dinosaur power, a world alive with titans, armored guardians, and cunning hunters, a golden age where life reached its most majestic, its most dangerous, its most balanced. But the story of dinosaurs was not finished, for in the Cretaceous to come,
evolution would write new chapters of raptors, of spinosaurids, of ceratopsians and tyrants. The Golden Jurassic was glory. The Cretaceous would be war.
The world turned again. 135 million years ago, the Jurassic Age gave way to the Cretaceous. Continents drifted farther apart, seas spread across lowlands, and climates grew more extreme. The land was changing, and so were its rulers. Though the great sauropods still thundered across the plains, a new generation of dinosaurs appeared, faster, sharper, more specialized. The Cretaceous was not just a continuation, it was evolution's gamble. The strong became stronger, the weak faded away, and predators rose to power like never before. They were not the largest, they were not the strongest, but they were among the deadliest. Raptors. Sickle-clawed hunters armed with speed, intelligence, and cooperation. Deinonychus was only 10 feet long, yet with razor claws and pack strategy, it could bring down prey far larger than itself. Its eyes burned with intelligence. Its feathers shimmered in the sunlight. They were wolves of the Cretaceous, and in their world, no creature could afford to be careless. But predators need prey. And one of the most successful plant eaters of the early Cretaceous was Iguanodon. 30 feet long, walking on 4 legs but capable of rearing on 2, it was a pioneer of its age. Its thumb spike, sharp and deadly, was both tool and weapon, used to strip plants or to wound predators who strayed too close. They traveled in herds, guarding their young with discipline. For every raptor pack that hunted them, an iguanodon herd stood ready to defend. They were not just survivors, they were architects of balance, shaping the ecosystems of the Cretaceous. But on the rivers of Africa, something greater stirred. Spinosaurus. At nearly 50 feet, it rivaled even Tyrannosaurus in size. But it was unlike any predator before. Its crocodile-like snout was built for fishing, its sail perhaps for display or for thermoregulation. It was a river tyrant, not chasing herds across plains, but stalking the waterways, ambushing fish, turtles, even unwary dinosaurs who dared to drink. The land had its killers, the rivers had theirs, and few dared to challenge the sail-backed giant. Predators grew sharper, prey grew stronger. The early Cretaceous was an arms race, and armor became a powerful defense. Pelacanthus bristled with spikes, its back plated in bony shields. Heavy, yet unyielding, it was a walking fortress. Even the bravest raptor thought twice before attacking. Evolution was sculpting both hunter and hunted, and each adaptation changed the rules of survival. Though the Jurassic had passed, the giants were not gone. In North America, Sauroposeidon rose above all, one of the tallest creatures ever to walk the earth. Its head reached over 65 feet high, nibbling from the tops of trees untouched by any other. They moved in herds across the new plains, still vulnerable as calves, still mighty as adults. The Age of Giants lingered, even as new challengers emerged. Beneath the waves, the oceans grew deadlier. Plesiosaurs glided like snakes of the sea. Ichthyosaurs faded, but new sharks filled their place, and pliosaurs, vast, brutal hunters, struck with jaws longer than a man's height. Ammonites spiraled through the currents, while early birds skimmed the waves above. The oceans, like the land, were kingdoms of both beauty and danger. But perhaps the greatest change of all was not in tooth or claw. It was in the plants. For the first time, flowering plants appeared, small, fragile, but revolutionary. They spread quickly, supported by insects, altering diets, reshaping landscapes. With them came new opportunities for herbivores to feed,
for pollinators to thrive, for ecosystems to grow more complex. The Age of Dinosaurs was evolving not just through predators, but through the very roots of the Earth. The early Cretaceous was not a place of peace. Every night, herds guarded their young, predators tested defenses, and survival balanced on the edge of chance. Some species thrived, others vanished, their bones left in stone as whispers of failure. But evolution never stopped. Every success carried forward. Every failure paved the way for the next survivor. The early Cretaceous was a crucible. It was here that raptors sharpened their claws, Spinosaurids claimed the rivers, and new plant eaters reshaped the land. It was here that flowering plants began their quiet revolution. And it was here that the balance of power shifted again, setting the stage for the giants and tyrants still to come. The Golden Jurassic had been glory. The early Cretaceous was innovation. The late Cretaceous would be war.
The mid-Cretaceous. 110 million years ago, the Earth was a place of division. Continents, once joined, were now tearing apart. South America and Africa drifted into isolation. Vast seas spread inland, splitting landmasses into islands. With division came change. Different continents became different worlds, and each world forged its own rulers, giants, predators, and survivors unlike anything before. On the plains of South America, giants returned, greater than ever before. Argentinosaurus. At over 100 feet long and weighing up to 80 tons, it was one of the largest land animals ever to exist. Its sheer size defied imagination. A living mountain, reshaping the landscape with every step. They traveled in herds, protecting calves from predators who dared not attack except in desperate hunger. The Jurassic had given us giants. The Cretaceous perfected them. But where there are giants, there must be hunters. Gigantosaurus. At over 40 feet long, it was one of the largest land predators the world would ever know. In South America, it ruled as apex predator, capable of hunting even the mighty Argentinosaurus. It could not bring down a healthy adult, but a calf, a straggler, an injured titan, those were chances worth the risk. The balance was brutal. Giants shaped predators, and predators shaped giants. It was a war written into the bones of evolution. Every continent was its own stage. In Africa, Uranosaurus browsed the floodplains, its sail a mystery. Perhaps a heat regulator, perhaps a display to rivals. In North America, armored Nodosaurus crouched low, its body a fortress of plates and spines. In Europe, herds of iguanodons thrived in forests, shaping entire ecosystems with their grazing. No single dinosaur ruled the world now. Each continent forged its own story. Each land carried its own champions. The sickle-clawed killers did not fade. They grew. In North America, Utahraptor rose, far larger than its relatives. A raptor built for power as much as speed. Its sickle claw could tear flesh. Its feathers gave warmth and display. Its mind worked with strategy. They hunted in packs, like wolves of the Mesozoic, and even large plant eaters fell to their cunning. Small but deadly, raptors endured, while giants came and went. The skies, too, belonged to giants. Pteranodon ruled the air, wingspans stretching over 20 feet, gliding endlessly over the inland seas of North America. They nested on cliffs, fought over territory, and fished the waters below. They were fragile, yet powerful. Their bones were hollow, their bodies light, but their dominance in the skies was absolute. And with them came birds, descendants of feathered dinosaurs beginning to claim their own place.
By the mid-Cretaceous, a new dynasty began to rise, the hadrosaurs. Descendants of iguanodons, they developed stronger jaws, broader beaks, and herds larger than anything before. Their voices echoed across the plains, communication that bound them together. They were the future of plant-eating dinosaurs, and their numbers would only grow. In the seas, new hunters rose. The ichthyosaurs were gone, but mosasaurs appeared. Lizards turned into leviathans. With double-hinged jaws and flippers that drove them like missiles, they became the ocean's apex predators. They shared the seas with sharks, with plesiosaurs, and with ammonites drifting in spiraled shells. The oceans of the mid-Cretaceous were no refuge. They were battlegrounds as deadly as the land. But beneath the battles of giants, a quieter revolution was taking root. Flowering plants spread further, diversifying into trees, shrubs, and grasses. They fed new insects. They shaped new diets. They altered entire landscapes. Dinosaurs adapted to these new sources of food. Herbivores became more efficient. Pollinators thrived. The earth itself was reshaping around its plants. This quiet change would define the future, long after the giants were gone. The mid-Cretaceous was a time of balance. Giants like Argentinosaurus reshaped the earth. Hunters like Gigantosaurus tested their strength. Raptors endured. Pterosaurs soared. Mosasaurs ruled the seas. Flowers rewrote the rules of life itself. It was not peace. It was not chaos. It was a stage set for the coming storm. For the greatest predators the world had ever known were waiting in the wings. And when they arrived, the age of giants would reach its climax.
75 million years ago, the Earth was alive with change. The continents had nearly taken their modern form. In North America, a vast inland sea cut the land in two, western Laramidia and eastern Appalachia. Europe had become an archipelago of islands, while South America drifted into isolation. Each continent forged its own story, its own champions, its own monsters. On the plains of Laramidia, horns ruled the land. The ceratopsians, horned dinosaurs, had risen to dominance. Among them, the mighty Triceratops, 30 feet long, weighing as much as a truck, armed with two great brow horns and a bony frill. It was both defender and warrior. Herds moved like armored battalions. They grazed in numbers, defended their calves fiercely, and turned their horns on rivals in clashes that shook the ground. They were prey. They were protectors. They were symbols of survival. But if horned dinosaurs were the soldiers, the hadrosaurs were the armies. By the late Cretaceous, they had become the most numerous plant eaters on Earth. With broad beaks, batteries of teeth, and powerful jaws, they could strip forests and chew tough plants with ease. Some bore crests, hollow tubes that resonated like trumpets, their voices carrying across miles. They moved in herds so vast that predators dared not strike except at the weak or the young. They were the lifeblood of the ecosystem, food for hunters, architects of the land. But over all of them hung a shadow, Tyrannosaurus rex, 40 feet long, 12 feet tall at the hips, teeth like knives, each one built to crush bone. It was not fast. It did not need to be. It was patient. It was cunning. And when it struck, nothing could withstand its bite. Hadrosaurs and ceratopsians lived in herds because of the tyrant. Their strength, their numbers, their defenses, all were shaped by the shadow of T-Rex. It was the final and greatest of the tyrant lizards. Yet not all relied on speed or herds. Some were armor. Ankylosaurus was a walking fortress, a low-slung tank of bone and muscle, plates protecting its back, spikes jutting from its sides. Its weapon was its tail. At the end, a massive club of bone could smash the legs of predators. Even a T-Rex might limp away broken. It did not flee. It did not hide.
It simply endured. The giants ruled the open plains, but in the shadows, hunters still thrived. Dromaeosaurs, the raptors, feathered, fast, and intelligent. They were no match for T-Rex. They did not need to be. They hunted in packs, striking smaller prey, using speed and cunning rather than brute strength. In the final age of the dinosaurs, they endured, just as they had for millions of years. Above them all, the skies belonged to giants. Quetzalcoatlus, the greatest of the pterosaurs. Its wingspan stretched more than 35 feet, the size of a small plane. It soared over the plains of North America, searching for food. It hunted like a stork, stalking prey on the ground as much as in the air. Small dinosaurs, carrion, even fish, nothing was beyond its reach. It was the last of its kind, a ruler of the skies before the end. In Europe, the story was different. Here, land was scarce, islands scattered across a shallow sea. Dinosaurs shrank. The sauropod Magurosaurus stood barely the height of a cow. Carnivores, too, were small, adapted to the limits of island life. This was a world of dwarves, a reminder that evolution was as much about shrinking as growing. South America told yet another tale. Here, the abelisaurs ruled. Most famous was Carnotaurus, its face crowned with horns, its arms absurdly small, its body built for explosive bursts of speed. It was a hunter like no other, swift, specialized, strange. In the absence of tyrannosaurs, these predators became kings. The late Cretaceous was the peak. The horned giants, the herding hadrosaurs, the armored tanks, the swift raptors, the sky-dominating pterosaurs, and the tyrants, the greatest predators the Earth had ever seen. It was a world alive with majesty, power, and danger. But the peak was also the edge. For beyond the horizon, a shadow darker than any tyrant was approaching. A shadow that no dinosaur could escape.
67 million years ago, the world of the dinosaurs had reached its peak. From Asia to South America, from island forests to endless plains, they were everywhere. They had survived volcanic eruptions, shifting continents, rising seas. Everywhere they lived, they thrived. But no one, not the horned titans, not the tyrants, not even the creatures of the sky, could sense the shadow approaching. On the western half of North America, Laramidia, life pulsed with intensity. Vast herds of Edmontosaurus, great hadrosaurs with broad duck-like beaks, crossed floodplains in the thousands. Triceratops locked horns in dominance battles, their frills flashing like shields. And above it all, the tyrant, Tyrannosaurus rex. Its roar echoed through canyons, a sound that silenced every other creature. This was the last golden kingdom of the giants. But dinosaurs did not rule alone. Where land met sea, another dynasty thrived. The western interior seaway split North America, a vast inland ocean teeming with life. Mosasaurs, marine reptiles the size of buses, patrolled its depths. Giant turtles drifted across the surface. Schools of fish shimmered like silver clouds. Here too, predators ruled. Here too, the end was coming. Half a world away, Asia told another story. In the deserts and forests of Mongolia, Velociraptor hunted in packs, fast, intelligent, and cunning. And towering above them was Tarbosaurus, a cousin of T-Rex, leaner, but no less deadly. The old lineages held on, raptors in the shadows, tyrants in the open. It was a mirror world to North America, a land of hunters and survivors. South America was a land apart. Here, Titanosaurs still walked the earth, long-necked giants like Saltosaurus, armored with bony plates beneath their skin. And stalking them was Carnosaurus, a predator unlike any other.
Its horns crowned its skull, its body built for speed, its arms reduced to tiny nubs. It was a land of giants and oddities, where the old sauropod bloodline still lingered. But in the shadows of the giants, a new lineage spread its wings. Birds. From small feathered hunters, evolution had carved flyers with beaks, wings, and hollow bones. Some lived like seabirds, diving for fish. Others perched in trees, plucking insects. They were survivors in waiting, inheritors of skies, soon to be emptied. Even before the end, the earth trembled. In India, the Deccan Traps erupted in fury, one of the greatest volcanic events in history. Lava flooded across thousands of miles. Ash choked the skies. For decades, for centuries, these eruptions reshaped the world, changing climates, poisoning seas. The dinosaurs endured, but their strength was already being tested. And yet, life went on. Dinosaurs fed, fought, and raised their young. Raptors stalked mammals in the shadows. To them, it was another day in a world they had ruled for more than 160 million years. But far above, in the silent dark of space, a traveler was coming. A rock 6 miles wide, a weapon of extinction. It had already begun its fall. The last night of the dinosaurs began like any other. The herd settled, the predators rested, the birds tucked their heads under their wings. Above them, unseen, the sky burned. Their age was ending. Their story was reaching its final page.
66 million years ago, the sun rose over the last kingdom of the dinosaurs. To them, it was just another day. Herds grazed, predators stalked, birds called from the treetops. But above, unseen, the sky was already betraying them. A visitor had arrived. A rock 6 miles wide, traveling faster than sound itself. Its target? The shallow seas near what is now Mexico. When it hit the atmosphere, the world saw fire. The sky blazed brighter than 1,000 suns. The ground trembled as shock waves ripped across continents. For the dinosaurs who looked up, there was no understanding, no chance to flee. It was the beginning of the end. In an instant, unimaginable power was released. The asteroid struck at 20 kilometers per second, faster than a bullet, with the force of billions of atomic bombs. Seas boiled, rock vaporized. A crater more than 100 miles wide was gouged into the earth. The dinosaurs' world had ended in the space of a heartbeat. The impact threw molten rock high into the atmosphere. When it fell back, the skies rained fire. Forests ignited in every corner of the globe. Flames roared across the plains. Ash filled the air. The dinosaurs fled, but there was nowhere to go. For many, death came not from the rock itself, but from the fire it unleashed. The seas, too, turned against them. The impact unleashed tsunamis higher than skyscrapers. They raced across oceans, tearing apart coastlines, drowning entire worlds beneath walls of water. Even the mighty mosasaurs and giant turtles could not withstand the fury of the waves. But the worst was yet to come. The skies filled with dust, ash, and sulfur. Sunlight vanished. For weeks, for months, the earth lay under a shroud of darkness. Plants withered, temperatures plunged, the great herbivores starved, and when they died, the predators soon followed. Not everything perished at once. In the shadows, small creatures endured. Mammals hid in burrows, birds fed on seeds and insects. But for the great dinosaurs, there was no refuge. The world that had built them was gone. The giants fell, one after another, until silence claimed the land. Imagine the last T-Rex. Hunger gnawed, prey vanished. It had ruled the plains as an apex predator, its roar shaking valleys. Now it walked alone,
in a land that no longer belonged to it. When it fell, it took with it not just a life, but an entire dynasty, the Age of the Dinosaurs. When the fires died, when the seas calmed, when the ash settled, silence ruled. The Age of the Dinosaurs, 160 million years of dominance, was over. But the story did not end in death. For in the silence, in the shadows, the seeds of the future waited. The birds, the mammals, the inheritors of a world forever changed.
The dinosaurs had ruled for more than 160 million years. But when the fire and darkness lifted, they were gone. The giant herds of Triceratops no longer thundered across the plains. The roar of Tyrannosaurus Rex no longer echoed through the valleys. The skies, once ruled by pterosaurs, now stood empty. It was a world of silence, a graveyard of giants. The earth itself seemed broken. Forests burned to the ground, seas filled with debris, skies heavy with soot. But extinction is never only an ending. It is also the beginning of something new. In the ruins, some endured. Small mammals, no larger than a rat, scurried from their burrows. They had lived in darkness, hiding from predators, feeding on insects, seeds, and roots. Now, for the first time, the giants were born. Birds, the last of the dinosaurs, fluttered from branch to branch, fragile but alive. Their beaks cracked open seeds that had survived the inferno. Crocodiles lurked in the rivers. Turtles hibernated through the chaos. Insects swarmed over the fallen forests. The giants had perished, but the small, the adaptable, the overlooked, they endured. The world itself was changed. For months, perhaps years, the skies remained dim. The sun's warmth was veiled. Cold gripped the earth. Plants withered, starving herbivores and their predators alike. Ecosystems collapsed in a chain reaction. It was a world unrecognizable, stripped of its titans, reduced to shadows. For more than 100 million years, mammals had lived in the shadows of dinosaurs, tiny, fragile, hiding beneath their feet. Now the shadows were gone. With the great reptiles erased, mammals spread into empty niches. Some grew larger, becoming hunters. Others specialized, digging, climbing, swimming. They birthed young alive, cared for them, and survived through cooperation and adaptability. The world that once belonged to the dinosaurs was now theirs. Yet not all dinosaurs vanished. One lineage survived. Fragile, feathered, airborne. The birds. Descended from small raptors, they carried the spark of the dinosaurs into the future. Over millions of years, they spread across the globe, adapting into countless forms, from soaring eagles to tiny sparrows. Every bird alive today is a living dinosaur, a direct echo of a world lost in fire. It took thousands of years for the skies to clear, for the forests to regrow, for rivers to run full again. Life is patient. Life is stubborn. Even in the darkest times, it waits for its chance. Slowly, green returned to the earth. The scars of fire faded. New forests rose. New creatures thrived. The age of dinosaurs was over. The age of mammals had begun. The asteroid did not simply kill the dinosaurs. It gave us our world. Without that single terrible day, the giants might have ruled forever. Mammals might never have risen. Humanity itself might never have walked the earth. The death of the dinosaurs cleared the path for us. In their extinction lies our existence. 66 million years ago, the world ended in fire and shadow. But from the silence came survival. From survival, new life. And from new life, us. The dinosaurs are gone. But their legacy still beats in every bird's wing, in every fossilized bone, and every story we tell. The end of their world was the beginning of ours.
Long before the word dinosaur was ever spoken, their bones lay waiting. Farmers plowed up strange stones that looked like giant teeth. Miners struck claws and spines while cutting through rock. Travelers stumbled upon skeletons eroding from cliffs. In ancient China, massive bones were once thought to be the remains of dragons. In medieval Europe, villagers whispered of giants turned to stone. For centuries, the truth remained hidden. The bones were puzzles without answers, relics of a forgotten age. It would take curiosity and courage to see them for what they truly were. In the 1600s and 1700s, natural philosophers began to ask dangerous questions. What were these bones? Some claimed they were the remains of biblical giants. Others thought they were species still alive in distant lands. Slowly, a new idea emerged. Perhaps these creatures belonged to worlds that no longer existed. The Earth, it seemed, had a deeper history than anyone imagined. The first real breakthrough came in the early 1800s. In 1824, the bones of a strange giant reptile were described in England, Megalosaurus. A year later, another discovery, Iguanodon, named for its teeth that resembled those of an iguana, but on a monstrous scale. For the first time, the world was face to face with creatures unlike anything alive today. They were not dragons, not giants, not biblical beasts. They were something entirely new. In the 1840s, British scientist Sir Richard Owen gave these giants a name, Dinosauria, terrible lizards. The name captured the imagination of the public. Museums displayed their bones. Writers and illustrators filled papers with visions of these monsters. For the first time, humanity knew it was not the first ruler of the earth. We were living in the shadow of giants who had come before. The mid-1800s sparked a frenzy. In the American West, two rival paleontologists, Othniel Charles Marsh and Edward Drinker Cope, began a war that would shape paleontology forever. They raced each other to discover and name new species, often destroying fossils in their haste. They spied on each other's crews, bribed workers, even sabotaged digs. It was chaos, but from that chaos came treasures: Stegosaurus, Allosaurus, Diplodocus, and Apatosaurus. Dozens of species were uncovered in a single generation. The bone wars were brutal, but they revealed a prehistoric world richer than anyone had dreamed. By the late 19th century, dinosaurs were no longer just bones. They became icons. Newspapers called them monsters of a lost world. Sculptors built life-sized models in London's Crystal Palace gardens. Families visited museums to marvel at skeletons towering above them. For the first time, dinosaurs stepped into the public eye, not just as fossils, but as symbols of mystery, power, and wonder. As discoveries multiplied, so did questions. How did these creatures live? How did they die? Why were they gone? In the 1800s, most scientists imagined dinosaurs as sluggish, dim-witted lizards, barely able to move their bulk. But the bones told a different story: strong legs, fast runners, sharp teeth, powerful jaws. The science was young, the evidence fragmentary, but the mystery was irresistible. The first fossil hunters saw more than bones. They saw windows into a world lost in time. Through their discoveries, the Age of Dinosaurs was reborn, not in flesh and blood, but in stone and imagination. The giants would walk again, not in the wildless prehistory, but in the minds of every person who stood in awe before their bones.
The 20th century dawned with a promise. The bone wars of the 1800s had left behind chaos, but also treasure. Dozens of species had been named, thousands of fossils collected. Now, a new generation of paleontologists sought to bring order. They reclassified species, corrected mistakes, and carefully rebuilt skeletons from scattered bones. This was the age when dinosaurs truly began to take shape, not just as fragments in dusty drawers, but as complete skeletons towering over museum halls. The world had never seen anything like it.
In the 1920s, fossil hunting became an adventure on a global scale. The American Museum of Natural History launched expeditions into Mongolia's Gobi Desert, led by Roy Chapman Andrews, a man so bold and charismatic he would later inspire the character of Indiana Jones. In the blazing heat of the desert, Andrews and his team uncovered some of the most important discoveries in history. The first dinosaur eggs ever found, nests that revealed how these ancient reptiles reproduced. For the first time, dinosaurs were seen not just as bones, but as living creatures that laid eggs, guarded their young, and walked across foreign landscapes. By the mid-20th century, museums had become temples of discovery. Skeletons of Apatosaurus, Diplodocus, and Tyrannosaurus rex stretched across vast galleries. Families traveled from around the world to marvel at them. The mounts were not just scientific displays, they were monuments, towering, majestic, inspiring. In a world still recovering from war and depression, dinosaurs offered something extraordinary, a glimpse of lost giants, proof that Earth had once held wonders beyond imagination. And then there was the king. Discovered in the early 1900s, Tyrannosaurus rex became the undisputed star of the dinosaur world. With jaws built for crushing bone and a body as long as a bus, it captured the public imagination like no other. Newspapers called it the most formidable predator that ever walked the earth. Children memorized its name, filmmakers put it on screen. The Age of Dinosaurs had many giants, but in the spotlight of the 20th century, none loomed larger than T-Rex. As the century rolled on, dinosaurs escaped the museum and marched into popular culture. The 1925 silent film The Lost World brought stop-motion dinosaurs to the silver screen, dazzling audiences. In the 1950s, filmmakers like Ray Harryhausen turned dinosaurs into movie stars, battling monsters and even invading cities. Children's books, toys, and cartoons spread the fascination even further. Dinosaurs became a language of wonder. Every child knew them, every parent marveled at them. What began as bones and stone had become stories in every home. But while dinosaurs roared across culture, science struggled to keep pace. For decades, they were pictured as sluggish, swamp-dwelling beasts, great lizards that dragged their tails and lived in eternal twilight. The truth was far more complex. Fossil evidence hinted at speed, intelligence, and adaptability. Tracks revealed running herds. Bone structures showed warm-blooded traits. The pieces were there, but the picture had yet to be assembled. The Golden Age gave us the giants, but it also left us with questions, mysteries that would ignite the next revolution. The Golden Age of paleontology was not just about discovery. It was about wonder. For the first time, the bones of the Earth's greatest giants rose before our eyes. They became more than fossils. They became symbols of mystery, of history, of the endless drive to know what came before. The Golden Age gave us the giants, but the story was far from over. The dinosaurs had been reborn in stone, and soon science would bring them to life again in ways no one expected.
For decades, dinosaurs were seen as lumbering failures. Giant lizards that dragged their tails, lived in swamps, and eventually went extinct because they couldn't keep up. That was the story. That was the myth. But in the 1960s, a spark ignited. A few daring scientists began to look at the fossils differently. And in their eyes, dinosaurs weren't failures, they were something else entirely. In 1964, paleontologist John Ostrom made a discovery that changed everything. In the Badlands of Montana, he uncovered the remains of a predator unlike anything seen before. It was Deinonychus, a raptor. It wasn't sluggish, it wasn't tail-dragging, it was fast, agile, and deadly. With sickle-shaped claws and a stiffened tail for balance, Deinonychus was built for the hunt. This single fossil forced a question the world wasn't ready for. If one dinosaur could be this fierce, this active, what if we had been wrong about all of them? John Ostrom pushed further. He studied the ancient bird Archaeopteryx with its feathers and claws and compared it to raptors like Deinonychus. The similarities were undeniable. Birds weren't just relatives of dinosaurs, they were dinosaurs. This was no longer a world of cold-blooded reptiles. Dinosaurs were warm-blooded, active,
intelligent, and, in many cases, feathered. The revolution had begun. Another voice rose to lead the charge, Robert Bakker, Ostrom's student, and a fiery defender of the new vision. Bakker argued that dinosaurs weren't evolutionary dead ends, they were nature's greatest success story, ruling the Earth for 160 million years, thriving in every climate, evolving into incredible forms. His book, The Dinosaur Heresies, became a manifesto for change, challenging every old idea and painting dinosaurs as powerful, fast, and alive. Where the old science saw monsters, Bakker saw athletes. Where others saw extinction, he saw endurance. Evidence supported the revolution. Fossilized trackways revealed herds moving together, not just wandering alone. Growth rings in bones suggested high metabolisms, more like mammals and birds than reptiles. No longer were dinosaurs painted as swamp dwellers too heavy for land. They strode confidently across plains, deserts, and forests. They weren't failures, they were survivors, masters of their world. One of the fiercest debates of the dinosaur renaissance was about blood. Were dinosaurs cold-blooded like lizards or warm-blooded like birds and mammals? The new evidence leaned toward warm-blooded. Fast movement, predator-prey balance, global distribution all suggested high energy. But the debate raged on. And in that argument, dinosaurs became more alive than they had been for a century. As science changed, so did culture. By the 1980s, dinosaurs were no longer just tail-dragging monsters. They were fast, intelligent, social. They appeared in new books, new films, new art, depicted with grace and fury. Children grew up with a different image. For the first time, dinosaurs weren't just relics, they were living, breathing animals. The dinosaur renaissance changed everything. It reminded us that science is never finished, that even the giants of the earth can be misunderstood, waiting for the right eyes to see them clearly. From the bones of Deinonychus to the theories of Bakker and Ostrom, a new vision emerged. Dinosaurs were not monsters. They were not failures. They were the ancestors of birds, the rulers of their world. And in many ways, they never truly went extinct.
In the summer of 1993, the world changed. The moment the T-Rex stepped onto the screen in Jurassic Park, audiences gasped. This wasn't clay animation, this wasn't men in suits, these were dinosaurs, alive again. Steven Spielberg's film, powered by the latest CGI, fused cutting-edge science with Hollywood storytelling. And in that moment, dinosaurs weren't just fossils, they were alive. What made Jurassic Park so powerful was its grounding in science. Paleontologist Jack Horner served as consultant, bringing to the screen ideas from the dinosaur renaissance. Fast, bird-like predators, herds of living giants. For millions, it was the first time they saw dinosaurs run, breathe, and hunt as animals, not monsters. The line between science and cinema blurred, and the world fell in love. While the silver screen brought dinosaurs to life, the real Earth yielded treasures of its own. The 1990s saw an explosion of fossil discoveries. In Mongolia's Gobi Desert, scientists uncovered feathered dinosaurs. In Argentina, the colossal Argentinosaurus, one of the largest animals to ever walk the Earth, emerged from the rocks. Every year, new species were named, rewriting what we thought we knew. The Age of Dinosaurs had ended millions of years ago, but for science, it felt like it had just begun. The 1990s brought the discovery that shook paleontology at its core. In China's Liaoning province, fossils revealed dinosaurs with feathers, not impressions, not theories, but undeniable evidence. Raptors with plumes, tiny carnivores with downy coats, four-winged gliders like Microraptor. For the first time, the connection between birds and dinosaurs wasn't just an idea, it was visible in stone. The dinosaur of Hollywood roared, but the dinosaur of science grew wings. Technology opened doors that had been locked for millions of years. With CT scans, scientists could peer inside skulls without breaking them, reconstructing brains, ears, and sensory organs. We learned that predators like T-Rex had extraordinary vision and smell,
that some herbivores had complex inner ears for balance. The dinosaurs of the 1990s were no longer slow, stupid brutes. They were smart. They were adaptive. They were alive with possibilities. For the first time, dinosaurs became truly global. South America revealed giant titanosaurs. Asia unveiled feathered raptors. Africa produced predators like Carcharodontosaurus and Spinosaurus. Dinosaurs weren't a North American story anymore. They were worldwide. Their bones, their legacy, stretched across every continent. The Age of Dinosaurs belonged to everyone. The 1990s boom wasn't just for scientists and moviegoers, it entered the classroom. Children grew up learning that birds were dinosaurs, that raptors had feathers, that the story of life was more complex, more thrilling than we'd ever imagined. A new generation was raised not on swamp dwellers, but on athletes, hunters, and skyrunners. The dinosaur renaissance had become mainstream. Dinosaurs invaded every corner of culture. They roared in movie theaters, they starred in cartoons and video games, they marched across toy shelves and cereal boxes. The 1990s weren't just the decade of dinosaurs in science, they were the decade of dinosaurs in everything. For the first time in history, the gap between fossil and imagination closed. Science provided the bones, technology gave them muscle, Hollywood gave them breath. The result was a vision of dinosaurs that felt real, that felt alive. And in that vision, the world saw not monsters, not failures, but animals, ancient, magnificent, and enduring. The 1990s taught us that dinosaurs never truly died. They soared in the skies as birds, they lived in our imaginations as giants, they thrived in our science as puzzles yet unsolved. From Jurassic Park to fossil beds in China, the decade reshaped everything. Dinosaurs weren't cold, weren't extinct in spirit. They were everywhere, and they always would be.
The 21st century began with a roar, not from the movies, but from the rocks. In Argentina, paleontologists unearthed Futalonctosaurus, a giant titanosaur stretching over 100 feet. In Utah raptor was revealed in new detail, a predator larger and more dangerous than its movie star cousin, Velociraptor. Each year, dozens of new species were described. Dinosaurs weren't fading from memory, they were multiplying. The age of discovery had returned. For decades, feathers had been the domain of small raptors. But then came Utyrannus. In 2012, scientists revealed a Tyrannosaurus nearly 30 feet long, covered in primitive feathers. This wasn't a bird-like cousin, this was a true giant, a predator that wore a coat of fuzz to endure the cold of Cretaceous winters. Feathers weren't just decoration, they were survival. And they proved that dinosaurs were even stranger and more beautiful than we ever imagined. The new millennium brought tools no paleontologist had ever dreamed of. 3D printing allowed skeletons to be reconstructed with perfect precision. Robotics tested how dinosaur legs moved, how tails balanced, how wings flapped. CT scans mapped blood vessels and sinuses, giving us voices, simulations of how a Parasaurolophus may have sounded when it called across ancient swamps. Dinosaurs were no longer just fossils. They were data, living, breathing data. In 2016, a miracle emerged from Myanmar. Inside a piece of amber, once tree resin, lay a dinosaur's tail. Not stone, not impression. Actual bone, muscle, and feathers frozen in time for 99 million years. For the first time, we didn't just imagine the softness of a dinosaur feather. We touched it. The past wasn't just written in stone, it was preserved in gold. South America became the kingdom of giants. Argentinosaurus, Patagonicus, Dreadnoughtus, each titanosaur stretched the limits of imagination, longer than blue whales, taller than 5-story buildings. With each new skeleton, scientists pieced together the life of the largest land animals to ever exist. And in their bones, they read the story of ecosystems strong enough to feed them. Forests, rivers, and plains bursting with life. The new century gave us new predators, too. In 2015, the discovery of Dakotaraptor showed a raptor nearly as big as a human, feathered, powerful, hunting in packs. No longer were raptors just movie monsters. They were athletes, with plumage, with grace,
with strategy. The predators of the Cretaceous weren't just terrifying, they were sophisticated. Few dinosaurs have changed more in the modern age than Spinosaurus. Once thought to be a land-based carnivore, new discoveries in Morocco revealed a creature with paddle-like feet, dense bones, and a tail built for swimming. For the first time, we saw a dinosaur that wasn't king of the land, but master of the rivers. The reign of dinosaurs was more diverse, more unexpected than we ever dreamed. By the 2010s, the evidence was overwhelming. Birds weren't just related to dinosaurs. They were dinosaurs. Every feathered fossil, every analysis of hips and wishbones, every genetic study, it all pointed to the same truth. The dinosaurs never vanished. They still fill our skies, sing in our trees, and perch on our windowsills. The age of dinosaurs never truly ended. It just changed its shape. In the 21st century, dinosaurs leapt into the digital age. Virtual reality placed you inside a Cretaceous forest. Augmented reality let a brachiosaurus walk through your living room. Museums used holograms to peel away skin, show beating hearts, and let visitors walk beside giants. For the first time, anyone, anywhere could meet a dinosaur face to face. The story of dinosaurs didn't end in fire and ash. It continued in bones pulled from deserts, in feathers sealed in amber, in the beating wings of every bird alive today. We live in the shadow of giants, and in their living legacy. The 21st century gave us more than new discoveries. It gave us a truth both humbling and exhilarating. Dinosaurs are not gone. They are all around us.
And then it ended. The great thunder of herds, the cries of hunters, the songs of the Cretaceous forests, all of it fell silent. In the aftermath of fire and ash, a stillness swept across the earth. No more shadows of towering giants, no more wings darkening the sky, just silence and the long mourning of a planet. The last dinosaurs left no goodbyes. They did not know their age had ended. Their final steps pressed into mud, their last calls echoing into the smoke. These became their farewell. In time, those footsteps hardened into stone, and millions of years later, we follow them like ghost trails across eternity. When the dust settled, the world was quiet. For the first time in 160 million years, there were no dinosaurs ruling the land. The forests returned, but they were empty of thunder. The plains stretched wide, but no herds shook the ground. The oceans rolled on, but no mosasaurs broke the surface. The giants were gone, and the world was smaller without them.
This was their kingdom, lasting 165 million years. Now they survive only in stone, in bones, and in our dreams. But tonight, as you drift into sleep, imagine the sound of great footsteps, the breath of giants among trees, and the forgotten earth still alive in memory. Good night, and dream of the dinosaurs.